In the world of power, legacy is a double-edged sword. It can elevate you to a throne you never built, but it can also chain you to ghosts of the past, suffocating your ability to redefine yourself. Law 41 of the 48 Laws of Power urges us to remember one essential truth: avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. The reasoning is as simple as it is profound. The person who comes after a legend is almost always at a disadvantage, forever trapped in comparison, living in a shadow that's impossible to outrun. If you must follow, you must make your own name, chart your own path, and refuse to inherit a throne that isn't truly yours. Throughout history, successors to greatness have often struggled. Not necessarily because they lacked talent, but because their position itself was cursed by expectations. The people, whether a kingdom's subjects, a corporation's employees, or a community's followers, hold on tightly to the memory of those who led them well. A charismatic leader becomes not just a person, but a myth, a symbol, an ideal. And no matter how skilled you may be, stepping directly into that role means you're automatically compared to perfection. It's a contest you'll lose before it starts. Consider the story of Alexander the Great. Upon his death, his empire was left to his generals, but none of them could match the aura he left behind. They squabbled, split the empire, and ultimately faded from history's memory. The name Alexander echoed louder than the deeds of any who came after. Or think of Steve Jobs. After his passing, Apple's new leadership faced the impossible task of living up to a man whose very image symbolized innovation, rebellion, and genius. No matter how capable his successors, public memory inevitably compared them to Jobs' mythic status. The wise understand that to follow greatness, you must break the pattern. Either refuse the position and claim one of your own making, or dramatically redefine it so the comparison becomes meaningless. To imitate a legend is to guarantee mediocrity, for people see the copy and yearn for the original. The fresh face who tries too hard to fill a giant's shoes looks weak, desperate, and uninspired. One of the cleverest strategies is to create your own space. If fate places you next in line after a legend, don't cling to their image, don't preserve their methods as sacred law. Disrupt the pattern. Bring in new rituals, symbols, and language. Shift the narrative. That way, instead of being seen as the lesser version of someone else, you become a different entity entirely. The key is not to continue the story but to start a new one. History rewards those who dare to replace memory with something fresh. Napoleon didn't position himself as a mere successor to the revolution, he crowned himself emperor, rewriting the story of post-revolutionary France in his own image. Elizabeth I didn't attempt to imitate her sister Mary's strict Catholic rule, she pivoted, ushering in a Protestant England and a cultural renaissance under her distinct name. These leaders understood the danger of imitation and the power of originality. It's tempting, of course, to believe that aligning yourself with a legend's image grants you instant respect and loyalty. But those gains are fleeting. People don't admire followers for long, they admire pioneers. The psychological effect of comparison works against you the moment you position yourself as the continuation of someone else's story. Even if you succeed, it'll be framed as, not quite what the last leader would have done, or, good, but not as great. This principle also operates in everyday life. The successor to a beloved manager at work, the new coach after a champion leaves, the second spouse after a celebrated marriage, all risk being judged through the lens of nostalgia. The solution is to break form. Don't compete with memory. Transform the situation so that comparisons are rendered useless. Announce new goals, reshape expectations, introduce new methods. Be the storm after the calm, or the calm after the storm. Either way, be unmistakably different. In personal relationships, this law is equally valuable. When you enter a group, a circle of friends, or a relationship dynamic where someone else has held sway, don't attempt to fill their void directly. Doing so ensures that people will constantly measure your worth against theirs. Find a different angle. Offer what they did not. Where they were assertive, be thoughtful. Where they were distant, be engaging. turn the expectations upside down. To master this law is to embrace the power of narrative control. Power is as much about perception as it is about ability. If the perception of you is locked in a comparison you can't win, then you must dismantle the frame entirely. People remember those who change the terms of engagement, not those who cautiously maintain them. And yet, there's a secondary danger to consider. If you find yourself occupying the position of a great man, know that you, too, can become a burden for those who follow. The longer you cling to power, or the more you attempt to secure a legacy through successors in your image, the more likely you are to doom them to mediocrity. A wise leader lets go at the peak, allows for change, and understands that true greatness makes room for reinvention. In creative fields, the same rule applies. An artist who endlessly replicates a mentor's style will always be seen as derivative. A writer who stays too long in another's narrative shadow never earns their own voice. To escape, one must create disruption, to stop being an echo and become a signal. The instinct to follow paths already carved by others is strong because it feels safe. But safety in power is often an illusion. What seems like the easiest route is frequently the most dangerous because it exposes you to comparisons you cannot control. The path of least resistance leads straight into the great man's shadow. And in shadows, nothing grows. The world remembers those who refuse to be the sequel, who refuse to play by inherited rules. It favors those bold enough to carve a fresh chapter, even if doing so means weathering storms of criticism or skepticism. But in the end, it is these individuals who shape history, who make old stories obsolete and etch new ones into memory. To avoid stepping into a great man's shoes is to avoid being swallowed by legacy. It is to claim ownership over your story, your methods, and your destiny. It is to understand that power doesn't come from keeping the past alive, but from making people forget it. Those who cling to another's legend remain trapped in it, while those who create their own legend become the ones others eventually struggle to follow.